Anything? Just some feedback.
At least half or all of it, everyone.
Just some feedback.
Oh God. Being put on the spot, it's hard to like act out because in my head I'm like, what am I going to do with that? What am I going to do with that? With his one, yeah. And it was. The first thing I did was just burst out laughing, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to act that out? And then you got up and played Adam. And then you got up and played the apple, and then I got up and played Eve, and then you got up and played God, and what did you play? Because I can't remember what you played.
I struggled.
That's what I was just about to say. So it was your first time last week. I think you've done exceptionally well.
Thank you.
And the way how the acting just came through, it was just amazing. So from having the inner critic saying, what am I going to do with that? Then just acting it out, it just flowed naturally. And that's sort of like pushing through the inner critic and coming out the other side. And it's absolutely amazing. So, yeah. Don't like being put on the spot. However, what comes through is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. Just to,
No, carry on.
just to add on to Sheiling's point, it's being put on the spot. It's like it's a life situation. You can take that out of this room and apply it anywhere in the world, anytime. Not going into my personal story, but it makes you dig deep within yourself. And going back to the empowerment that Merva Lee was talking about, this is a group of empowerment. I appreciate everyone's energy. Everyone, there's no one in any judgment. Everyone has their own opinion and their own way of seeing things. But it's a safe environment where people can be themselves. People can be vulnerable because this is no plaything. It's called playback. Well, it's not a plaything because you're out there with the sharks. It's like, now it's on to you. And it's made me know that there's more in here. You know? You think you know yourself, but it's even deeper than what you know. You know, and the deeper you go, you can go deeper still. That's basically where I'm trying to get to. And I found out that even before coming here, that I've gone pretty deep within myself, pertaining to things that I've been through in my life. But this has taken me even deeper still, and there's more space. So I appreciate everyone and thank everybody for the generosity in sharing who they truly are, and showing up as the authentic self. I can talk all day, but
give somebody else a chance.
I appreciate people's energy. You know, not many authentic people in my life. Yeah, I don't appreciate it, you know, so I appreciate everyone. Thank
I just like to sing, so I shall sing as long as I live. As long as I live,
I shall sing.
I shall sing as long as I live. As long as I live, I shall sing.
Okay, good, thank you. Who else wants to say something about what you may have learned, what you liked, what you discovered by coming here doing this project, what you found out, what you may have learned about Windrush, what you already knew about Windrush, what you would like to say about whatever, anything. Who else?
I'd like to say the stories, when I first came, the stories from these ladies, it was really powerful stuff. And again, just to hear the stories and then think, oh wow, these things happen. And even the journeys coming over from the Caribbean and coming here, what you went through as well, we don't get to hear them. So they should be out there for everybody to young and old to hear these stories. Otherwise they could get lost, just phase away. But we need to keep those stories alive. So this is a good thing. You've got the power of the internet now, you can record things. So yeah, you can keep things for posterity to show the generations. So,
I didn't even think of myself as a Windrush generation because I didn't. The other thing I found out about, heard about, was a negative thing about the being sent back because they didn't have the documents. So that's the reason why I said I call myself a reluctant Windrusher because I didn't know. I said the negative part. That's what I heard. But hearing people's story and going back and thinking back to things that my uncle and my dad used to tell me, it wasn't directly. Obviously, it was a Windrush generation. It was like coming here with skills and not being able to find jobs, but having sort of like menial jobs, jobs that the natives were interested in doing, and getting paid. And even though you're doing some of the jobs with the local people, or shall I say, the English people, you found out later on that you were getting paid less than they were getting, and all of that went with it. So when I remember all of those stories and I bring forward, then that's when the Windrush thing got stuck in my head. But in my case, I wasn't dying to come to England and all of those sort of things. What I was dying to do is go to high school, hanging out with boys, and all of those sort of things. Because where I came from, in a little village, which was absolutely fantastic. If I look back at my childhood, it was absolutely the sort of childhood that I often say to my kids that I would love them to have had. Sort of like, the landscape and everything. It's not like that now. Unfortunately, a lot of places, when it's like the best people moved out and the worst moved in. But that's what I remember. I was loving my life until I came to England. I loved my life when I came to England, but I thought it was temporary. I just thought I was on a holiday, And it's not to say I don't love England and love my life now, but what I'm saying is I didn't know I didn't know what Windrush was all about. So having it out there for sort of like, I'm one of the older generation, but having it out there for the young people and kids to be proud of who they are, to stand tall and to realize that, say, several generations below them have come up so far, even though we're still struggling. So,
what I'd like to say, coming to a group like this, it makes you can be yourself. And you don't have to have no expert knowledge of acting. You don't have to know how to do anything. You can just come and improvise and get involved in everything with everyone else. And I just think that is just great, because with that you can learn things, pick up things, and I don't know what's saying. The stories about Windrush, a lot of young people don't know about it, because I didn't come on a Windrush. I would say I came here as a small child, and a lot of people don't know. People came here to parents and family they knew nothing about. They could tell you anyone was your parents. You wouldn't have a clue, because you didn't know who that person was, because you lost connection with it. And there's a lot of breakdown within a lot of families, and we never got any counselling, any healing. Nobody looked into it to find out what the real problem is, because a lot of children land up, leaving home and running away from a lot of situations that traumatize them. And a lot of parents were traumatized because of how people were treated when they came here. So a lot of healing needs to be done, never got done. It's been done in parts and not collectively, and it's created a lot of problem within our community. Because a lot of our family came here for a few years, they thought, and they never, quite a lot of them didn't build anything for the second generation. Their mind was still on going back to the Caribbean. So a lot of them built houses there, and then they realized they became ill and they had to stay here. Or if they went back, they have to keep coming back because the system in our country is not developed to look after elderly people, and things like that weren't taken into consideration, and you didn't realize that all these issues would arise around you. And I think these stories need to be told, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I just feel like talking now because I was sitting there and then listening to everybody, and I thought, when Myrtle started, it was like she was telling my story. Because I came in 1971, 22nd of June 1971, and I called myself what that came up on that Aero 747 jet, the last recruit, because we were the last set of people they recruited from all over the West Indian Island. We all gathered in Barbados to get the 747 to come to Heathrow Airport. And we suffered a lot, and God saved me because I almost murdered a patient. But
Pardon?
you
You never heard that.
Wait.
Almost. But good God saved me. I then hearing this young man talk about all the things that black people, done, and I whisper in his ear, what about insulin? And what about Mary Seacole? Nobody talk about Florence Nightingale and not Mary. And all these things, and then you get people calling you names. And how dare you call me a black bastard? What is a black bastard? I don't know what a black bastard is.
I wrote a poem about that actually,
Yeah?
called Indigo Bastard.
Oh, there you are. And I was so, confused, thinking I'm coming here, I'm going to be a matron at the end of my training, or then I'm going to go back and rule Grenada in the hospital.
Don't we all?
My training in England.
They had other plans for you.
Yes, and then eventually certain things happened, and I had to stay and finish my studies and stayed on and start a new life, because there was strategy back in Grenada and things just changed. But I have to say, without that man up there, I wouldn't have been here today, because I ended up in the Mosley for 24 weeks having therapy, going right back to my childhood.
Two of
and
us.
talking about things I've experienced before I even got to an adult, from 9 years old and so forth, and my mother and everything else, the whole household. And that therapy in Mosley, I have to say, 24 weeks, gave me strength and courage to be who I am, and how, I'm still here today, because I could have done a lot of horrible things. So.
We focus a lot about the adults that came up and they had the struggles, but they had the children that was coming up that suffered more, I must say, much more than the adults did, because with their background, you come from islands with the dialect is different, and they couldn't express themselves. in the end, they put them in special needs school, but they didn't call it special needs in the days. But there were lots and lots of children that they got left back because they couldn't learn a trade because most of them have been sick, you know. And even now, I remember looking at this documentary with this elderly man, when all about the Windrush generation. And even now he's struggling. He decided that he would learn a trade so he could help himself because he didn't have the knowledge to do something beyond learning a trade, you know. So even now with some of the elderlies with dementia and all these things, all of these things throwback that is coming forward because they couldn't express themselves and you know, so that's my piece.
Thank you.
I want to start off by saying, I don't swear, I'm not going to, but I was going to use the P word, but I'm just gutted. I'm just gutted I got here so late. So gutted. The more I hear your stories and realising that I've never actually told mine, I'm the first generation born here, and that whole experience of having siblings come from the Caribbean, when I was the oldest child, and suddenly my position being taken over by this, what I'm learning is good hair, light-skinned sister, so that's not me, and then not speaking patois because my parents were told not to teach it to us, and my older siblings come here now, they've got this audience with mummy and daddy that I don't have. And all of that trauma throughout all of us, unresolved, no support. And I'm just gutted I didn't get to be here to share more of my story. But I came here because I guess in some ways because of childhood trauma and being stuck in a place, and I was stuck in a place that meant I couldn't speak up, I couldn't perform, I wouldn't, throughout my school years, I refused to take part in any school play, just not standing up, not performing. And so this was about breaking the ice. And I left here my first week ever so proud of myself, because I took part in 3 of them. I can't remember what they're all called. I took part in 3. One was a minor didn't wrong, but I got off my chair, and that was hard.
Mum and Brandon got 2 minutes for 2 minutes, so it's alright.
And today, I was actually really looking forward to giving the warm-up a go, because I was determined, you're going to do this, Hilda, you're going to do this. You can. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And it's an opportunity for you to grow and push through. And I had all this conversation with myself, and I came today. At one point to do a little dancing bit, and so I did get up and I did do a little improvising. And so I'm good. But it's an amazing space, that's all I know, and just to be amongst a lot of you here, I guess could be my sisters that came over from the Caribbean. And to me, it was first born generation here, but they haven't shared their stories. And within the family, they have not had a chance to tell their stories and to be listened either. I'm trying to do that now with them, and trying to, middle child, I'm usually the negotiator and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get us together. Parents are past now, but we're all in a mess, and we need talk. They need the space. They need the opportunity to be here, to vent, to get out, to have their stories read. Brilliant. I mean, this is brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So there is something about the conversation that we're having that makes us the librarian of our whole family history, oral and written, and this is a great way for it to continue. So over the next couple of weeks, Dave and I will be having this conversation with our family members, with our friends, with our colleagues, telling the stories, and something that we must continue to do. You know, the songs, the spoken word, the dancing, you know, but when Tony was talking about everyone how she would open up, I was going to say, well, what about traditional costumes? Because that's what
I was going to say fashion.
that's something that, you know, was synonymous.
Yeah,
you know,
the national costume.
dress, the national dress, yeah.
I brought mine up, I don't know. I brought mine up.
Yeah, you know.
I wore it for a few years.
You know, and the history behind that, you know, and, you know, the Caribbean is a melting pot, as we know, and how do we, you know, explain it to people who don't quite understand what it is to be a West Indian? Even the word West Indian is not really, not even to us.
West Indian.
It went the wrong way for India.
For the Caribbean in the West.
I'm Caribbean. I know West Indian.
Yeah, but
Caribbean.
Mr. Chris,
but even the term, I mean, growing up, and sort of the reference in your thing, I had so many names. First of all, I was British Jamaican. Then I was Caribbean. Then I was Black. Yeah. Then I'm this. Then I'm that.
Then you got Black African.
And then I'm Black other. You know. Yeah. So you know, it's
Confused.
Which
one am I?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, as librarians to our family history, my point is that we must continue the stories and we must continue the journey. You know, yesterday I went to Legoland, so I got on the train up Waterloo. And they've got
in Windsor.
yeah. So they've got the Windrush statue of a man and a woman and a young child and suitcases. I was on that platform since 18. So I had my granddaughter there and I said, look, take a picture and you're going to show your great grandma and granddad that you're here. And the lady stopped, she goes, what are you taking pictures for? And I said, okay. And I explained to her about the legacy of the Windrush and, you know, I'm teaching my granddaughter the history of her family, how they came, you know, what they went through, the racism and everything, you know. My mom was a trained nurse in Jamaica, but she was never given that title. She ended up being an auxiliary nurse. You know, my dad was a stonemason, but he never did that. He spent his whole working life working in factories. You know, he tried to jobs at British Rolls-Royce, didn't get in. Tried it at British Aerospace, couldn't get in. All those kind of couldn't get in. You know.
There's a lot of stories.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stories. So we must continue to do these things.
What I'd like to say, listening to you saying about the children came here and it's like they invaded your space or whatever, and that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. I've never heard that side. It's normally the ones that came over felt rejected by the ones that was here already, had a root. So it'd be interesting to even hear your story of feeling others coming in your space and being together, because we all know the story of the ones that were born here were the favourite and they weren't allowed to do anything. So to hear your story, I'm absolutely amazed. I've never heard that, because the ones that were born here were always known that they could never do anything wrong, and the ones that came over, they had to run behind and do all the dirty menial work. And I don't know if it was psychological, I don't know what the parents had, and nobody has ever looked into that, because a lot of children that came over, it's like they came over to strangers that treated them not like their child. And hearing you say your parents favoured those that came over, that needs a book written on the other way around. So I'm amazed to hear that story, and I'd like to even hear more about it. I just want to say that.
When you spoke about that, it sort of like just triggered something in me, because I had 3 siblings that were left in Jamaica. Jamaica. Grew up, they were college, they, you know, did their university and everything, and they always asked why weren't they sent for. And one, she came up when she turned like about 28, 30 by herself because she was planning on getting married and her fiance got killed. But the other two were boys. And they always ask why weren't they sent for. And I remember one particular turner said, is it because we were boys? You know, and you know, but I looked at it that Mark, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth. It was the fifth and the first boy from mom and dad, and then his brother Kendrick was a sixth. So it's 2 boys amongst about 6 girls. And I looked at it that at the time Mark was he was going to KC and he was okay. Kendrick was also his studies was coming on okay. That's in my head. That's how I looked at it. But I've always sort of like we heard about. I didn't have the experience about coming over here and being treated differently or anything like that because.
But a lot of kids did
But I had a cousin. I have a cousin who ran away from home, and I didn't know all of this until we were big people and we were just talking. And I was saying how much because my mom and her mom, they're twin sisters. There were 2 girls that our grandparents had, and they were twin girls. She had like about 4 sets of twins that died. One of them was, I don't know, but they were the only 2 survived, and there were 2 girls. So we sometimes talk, and I said, Aunt Cicely, you know, and she said, yeah, and I said, Mom is more the quieter one, and you know, and then she turned to me and she said to me, when she came, that's my cousin, said to me when she came up, did you know I went away from home? I said, no, I didn't know that. She said, when you used to come by, you know, Mom, where do you think I was? I said, oh, I thought you was out with your friends and whatever, you know. And she was about 15, 16. And so she ran away from home because when she came up, she had a younger sister who was born here, and she had to go to the laundry, she had to do this, she had to do that, and her younger sister was big enough to have helped her, but she thought she was a skivvy, and she just wasn't going to have any more of it, and she just ran away from home. Plus, apparently Auntie loved the boys better. You know, her brother was, and her came at the same time, her brother was older than her. You know, so those stories needs to be told. The way kids, the preferential treatment are given to this one or that one.
A lot of it is perception. When we have had I've got this 5 of us, and what I've learned by talking to them individually, because they all come together, is that we've all had the same parents, but totally different experiences. And that's the message that came like bang in my face, because that's how I perceive things, that's how I experienced my daddy. But my older sister, and 2 older sisters, both again very different experiences.
In Jamaica or
living here within the same household,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that what I've noticed is that I now know that my experience is different to all my other siblings. We grew up in the same home, but I guess being individuals, different personalities, different resilience, different strengths, different skill sets, we were impacted differently. So my older sister never realised that at one point I too became the older child, because she left, she ran away, the first one to run away. Then the next one was born, the next one was she left early. We were all leaving home early, but she never occurred to her until I said to her, but sis, don't you realise that when you left at 18, we took over. The parenting didn't change. The arguing and the dysfunctionality didn't change. It continued. You got away early. I got away after, in terms of age, later, so I was more impacted. But it's just that we don't always realise that we have different experience, and we must be mindful about assuming we know what the other went through, because we don't.
Can I just steer it back to the the experience that you had over the last 6 weeks and anything to share and learn and say about.
The different styles, the different techniques. Still gotta study it a bit. What's it called? The different
Korna.
Fluid sculpt.
Okay. But last week was the defining moment when I got it. The club in it, and the other bit where you can. But last week was when I sort of like, went off something. I thought I got it before, but last week was when I sort of like, so today I got bogged down with a meeting and something I was listening to which I had to leave to get here, and at one point I was stuck at 8 with all the roadworks and everything, and I was thinking, just go home. But I'm glad I turned up because each session, each week, you just go that further within yourself. You just, as you say, Jason, dig deep, sort of like, and you just go down, just get stronger. And can you imagine if young people, those who are there in the wherever, if they were to sort of like meet and even once a week and express themselves and do things and
the phone and the computer
can you imagine how everybody, the burden, a lot of the burden that they're carrying, because there are a lot of young people out there with school in this country, with school and everything, and because whatever, what they didn't know that they weren't punishing them teachers, they were punishing themselves. And until they get to a certain age, that's when they realize. And I met someone who she said she wasn't really interested in school. That was many years ago. She wasn't interested in anything. She used to go to school every class, struggling class. And then when she was 26, she decided to go back to study because she realized she hadn't learned anything. So all of these things that we're doing here, if one or two or a group of us sort of like carry forward, some of the young people are very difficult to talk, difficult to sort of engage with.
Look, this is very therapeutic. It's very therapeutic. You don't even know it until after you start to think about it, I mean, I did this only a year or something. We did a few things, and it's like, for me, it helped me so much, I mean, I was out the country for 30 years, right? Not in jail, right? I was out the country for 30 years, and I lost contact with my roots, and even up until the time when I left, I was still wasn't really that in contact with my roots, because I was trying to do something that I wanted to do, but I couldn't really cope with all this stuff, and you get conditioned the time you're at school, to look, we're marginalized, but we are conditioned to marginalize ourselves as well. So since I've come back, I've been doing things which I've been doing, but I've been going to museums and going to the theatre, which I did anyway, going to museums, going to see this painter, going to see, and not just black people either, because this is another thing that we have just marginalize ourselves just to black, because the black transcends in so many fields, you know what I mean? And not that we just concentrate ourselves down to one specific genre, It's like I went to see the Shakur Mason family. It's fantastic, this is something as well which we did, in the 17th century, there were like black classical musicians, you know what I mean? And, not just organize ourselves to one thing. The world is our oyster, and that's what we should do. This is fantastic for me.
Creativity is healing, and that is what is not influenced at school. Yeah. So when work for other people, but we're not taught how to have our own businesses because we're not meant to be self-sufficient. And with my experience and what I went through, it's actually the creativity that's what helped me with my healing. And I'm able to create poetry, like any depression or anxiety that I'm going through, I'll write down what I'm going through, and the next minute a poem flows out of it, and I'm like, whoa, you know. So that's what we have, and we have that when we are born. Yeah, that's in us already, but we have never had the environment to make it grow and flourish and nourish it, and give it the nutrients and the vitamins and all of that good stuff that we need. You know, we've been, our expression has been suppressed. Yeah,
It's a restriction.
yeah. So
Also, you can't go there. You can't go there. You can't live in the country. Not that you can't, but you go to the countryside and you're looked at like,
what you do there?
You go anywhere, it's like that.
I could go anywhere. I could go anywhere. I couldn't give a whatever. You know. Obviously, sometimes I went to Cornwall for the first time. I went to Cornwall 4 times. The first time I went 7 years ago, and I remember we were walking around and go on a narrow street. You know what? If you did Cornwall, you know what it would be like. It's a beautiful place, kind of thing. And the first evening when we went to this pub down the end of the lane, and we walked in, and every head was like.
Like the Wild West.
And I swear, if it was some American people, the right colour, shade, whatever, it's like, and we just walked into the country and say, you know, what's on the road, because my family, my children, grandchildren, and we go anywhere, and you're a person, you're a human being, right? My children, they aren't afraid to get them. What you got there? You know, they asked the question, and you know, we had our meal, and we went around the corner, we ate and everything, and we laughed and joked with a few people, and we left and went home. But going out and about, with rambling all over areas, fields and meadows or whatever, it's a rambling area. And then we ended up in Port When, I think it was, and we were walking down some church or somewhere, and people were sort of like, just carry on, you're on holiday, enjoy your holiday. I'm not going to be, you know, if people want to smile, they smile, I smile back. If they don't want to, I'll just carry on, you know. So what I'm saying is, it's like, I didn't come from the city when I was in Jamaica, when I grew up in Jamaica. I came from a village, where you had village school, at the end of village school you have the Orange Grove, at the end of the Orange Grove you have the river clear as crystal, you know, you have the one main road, and if you hear a car, you know who belongs to it, because there wasn't many people who were cars. A really lovely village, absolutely lovely. You have we used to hang out in the cemetery, because it was the cemetery, St. Cemetery was the length of this room. The graves were like where Tony were, and the rest of it, you had the guava tree that you would swing, and you have the oranges, you have the grapefruit trees and everything. So what I'm saying is, a lot of us came from the country. They had land, they had their own house and whatever, and they came over here, and yes, they had to go where the jobs were, and where their friends were, because, you know, it wasn't open arms and, you know, welcome. So we don't all want to live in the city, clumped up together. Some people would like to move out into the countryside, and you hear people who moved out to the countryside and they come back because of the treatment that they receive. So obviously we still have this struggle. And when you open their eyes and you're truthful, and I want someone who's truthful,
You need to link me up.
you know,
Okay.
what issues they have, than just pretending, very little has any desire, pretending that it's not happening. That's why when Tony, what's his name? I had him, the one who did the report about the racism institutional.
Tony Sewage.
Yeah, I had him. I know him. I know him. Not on that level, but I know him because I went to a few of his training practices with the union that I work for. And when he came up with that, I was so disappointed. I was so shocked and disappointed that he could say something like that.
Anybody Anybody who hasn't spoken wants to have a say for those who haven't
I
spoken.
think for me, basically, the 6 weeks course that you've been on, or whatever it's called, I did 4 weeks of it. And the environment, because I'm used to kind of going places where I do a bit of drama, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of Erica, but I write things with script. And I'm always used to, even poetry or whatever, I'm using my script to say my stories in the crowd, and the audience, and the big audience, and a lot of different things. But I use script. But being here, this was totally a learning process. It was great for me. I always say, I'm Jamaican. I don't English.
Me understand.
You understand what I'm talking about?
We all understand.
Yes. Although I lived in England for 61 years,
Wow.
I live here. But the fact is, as the year goes by, my memory sometimes, and when you're used to something, they say practice becomes perfect. I'm used to script, and I'm used to have my script in my pocket or etc. I come in here, oh my God, my mind just goes blank. And when I came and I saw everybody, I'm wondering, what the hell, excuse my language, what's going to happen? I'm just going to walk out. Well, I didn't walk out. I persevere, and I have learned a lot. And without my script, so this was quite good for me. It's challenging, it was good. I'm glad I've been here. And yeah, it's good, better, best. That's right. This is good, better, best. Never let it rest until you're good, become better, and you're better, become better.
Hello, I'm Tony and Maud. I've really enjoyed the session and I've learnt a lot, and I wish I'd come earlier, but never mind. I'll try.
Better late than never.
Yeah, yes, that's it. So thank you very much. That was very nice.
We have more in common than we don't have in common. You know what I mean? This is something we have to start to really express. You know, because we come from a generation of, you know, kids are supposed to be seen, not heard. So we're not talking from a very, very long time. You know, so it's only now coming out. You know.
Well, this could go into wee hours for
Yes, it could. Anybody else who wants to say anything that hasn't spoken?
I just want to say, I enjoyed. Oh, sorry. I'm going to stay along. That's not. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I would like to say that I enjoyed the 6 weeks really, really well, because everyone sort of encouraged me, and they sort of support me, even when they get to do some silliness sometimes. Yes, but then I get to do my own thing. Basically, nobody, I just do my own thing. So, and they still laugh and still make me feel okay. So when I go home, I laugh at myself and look in the mirror and say, I look up in the mirror, Mr. Jesus Christ, it's me that behaved like that. And then they said, my son said, I didn't know that you're back. So they don't take But I really and thoroughly enjoyed everyone company. I'm a people's person. So all who can put with me, tough cookie.
I just really wanted to say that it's
Sorry, 1 second, Faye. Margarita, come and sit here because the breeze is coming through. Gus, catch the breeze, yes. Bring from right to the world. Sorry, Faye, please go ahead.
It's really been an enabling space, and I appreciate that, because not only do you learn about your story, but you also learn about everybody else's story, which impacts on how you then go out and meet other people. And as a teacher, I think to myself, you know, I've been working so hard on decolonising the curriculum for children, and what I found really hard to do was to find the human resource to support the written curriculum. And we had decided one year during COVID that we were going to celebrate not just Black History Month, but celebrate the fact that I had decolonised the curriculum in such a way that impacted on the children creating their own museum, doing their homework. And we invited a lady here to talk about Windrush, but she couldn't make it. And someone stepped in at the end, and it was just the children, because they've been working all year learning about decolonisation, all the other societies, the Arctic Society, and the Egyptians, and just looking at sciences, and you know, they've been working so hard. And we had gone down to Brixton and celebrated the soldiers and giving up their life, and they didn't realise that this woman was sitting right in there. They were so amazed. But what I got from that discussion, we did have the lady come in on the day. This lady was trying to explain her story, but she hadn't come in on Windrush. She come in on a plane, and the children could not understand. They kept really, oh, did you come in on Windrush? And she kept saying, no, I came in on a plane. And it was almost like they were saying, well, no, that you don't count then, because you didn't come in on a plane. And looking back on the 6 weeks, I'm seeing how much the children could learn from experiencing what we've done over the past 6 weeks, because it makes their understanding real. And I remember I did it's called Conversation Alley, and basically you put a table out and each child sits and they present an argument. And one child was talking about Shakespeare and how, you know, Shakespeare wrote the play, and therefore Shakespeare deserves to get paid all that money and to live. And this, one of my black boys said, no, Amelia Basson wrote and supported the play, and so she should get some of the credit. And if you don't know your history, you won't know how to go forward. And it kind of really dug into my heart, because he was only 8, 9 years old. And it's just like, it was deep, you know? But it to me, it hit home that when I'm looking not just at my class, I'm looking at the whole school and how much it impacted on the whole school, including their families, that this is something that should go out into schools. Because it's important for our children to understand. I remember another that was saying to me, nobody likes me. And I just looked at him and said, no, why would you say that? And he said, nobody likes me, I don't like myself. And I'm like, why? You're so handsome. He goes, they don't like my hair. What's wrong with your hair? It's because you have locks. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with your hair. Your hair is beautiful, you know? And it's just the impact that schools have when they don't have like the resource, because they do not, the children miss out on so much. I remember one child cutting off the whole of his locks, and I said, why did you do that? And he said to me, oh, I think it looks better. And I said, okay, fine. You know, because you don't want to, he's changed his image in such a way that you want to, you also, you know what's happening, but you don't want him to, and as they grow older, he'll make his judgment again, but I just felt, wow.
The kids here in school in America, they often girls lock up the guys that locks, you know, without asking the parents.
It's just amazing thing, he's got into year 5 and suddenly, I don't want my locks anymore. Year 5, you're 9. You
gone all through school with locks and then
Someone said something. Yeah, someone said something.
But it just dawned on me, and with all of my learning over the 6 weeks, if I had this group to come into school, I mean, at the time of COVID, children could have access to this lady physically in the hall, but we did it by Zoom.
Yeah.
And they still got the full impact out of it, apart from they didn't understand how she could be there or telling them about the Windrush ships. They just couldn't make the
That is
connection.
what I feel in telling it, it's not about the ship Windrush itself. You know, because that's why I'm saying that there were certain elements when I first heard about Windrush. You know, Emperor Windrush, we can start by saying where it came from, because it was one of the warships was
Yes, a German ship.
Yeah, so basically, it's for them to understand it's not just about
The ship. It's about the import, the migration,
it's about the impact, it's about the dates. Because I think there's a date when they there's a cut-off 70 something, there's a cut-off date, but is it a period of time? It's a period of time. And Empire very much also, but they need to understand that it's not about just the people who came on the ship, it's people who came up to help with the war effort and all of that and all of that.
But drama to them opens up their eyes, mind. You know, I got them to role play, like, you know, I said to them, okay, this is Mrs. So-and-so and everything. I just said to them, role play a family in Africa, just playing with the children and everything else. And then I got them to imagine they were like slaves, they were coming over. The Queen sent you over to help this family out. But they don't really need no help. But you're going over there to help them, you're going to invite them over to England, and then they looked at me shocked when I said you've got to tie up their hands. And the children were like, why? Well, I said that's how they brought them over. And then I had to explain about they'd taken so many that they threw them off the ship.
Yeah.
The children
Pregnant ladies.
want to know. At the end of the story, they were like, but this wasn't fair. You know, and it's just they could see it, they could understand it. And now I have a group of children across the school that think this, they know they belong. You know, and that's, I think that is the reason why I decided to go into leadership, because you can't make complete changes unless you have somebody behind you that can help you. Whereas if you're in leadership, you can.
And that's the sad part. And that's the sad part about it, because when we were growing up, we didn't have that knowledge. We had no knowledge. We didn't even know we were African.
We didn't like to say we were,
You know, because nobody told us any history about who we are. Like, you're trying to impact things on the children, and self-knowledge is power. Because when you have no knowledge of yourself, you don't feel worthy of who you are. And like people say, we mustn't think that our history started as slaves, because we weren't slaves, we were enslaved.
Yes.
So we must remember that we weren't a group of people that were
Slaves.
We were enslaved, we were kidnapped and taken, so all that need to be told to our children as well. And all these things we weren't able to talk about or have knowledge, because I can teach my son and my children anything about it, people around us, because all those things, all we learned was European history. We learned nothing about ourselves. And we didn't realise that we were kings, we were queens, we invented things, we created things, cataracts and all that. That was a black woman. The blood, the plasma, things like that needs to be told to our children. You know, don't let them think
that we were slaves.
Yeah, and that's all we were, because that is so wrong. And we weren't taught it, so we couldn't pass it on. And we've now got to teach, like you in the position with young children, to teach them. We weren't slave, we
We
were
were
in
in the
slave.
slave.
You know, we were made, we were kings, queens. When you go back to Africa, people invented loads of things. The first civilization started in Africa, but they told us it started in Greece. But that is not true. So all those things need to be, you know, told.
First of all, you got
correctly,
to know it in
because
order to
it
talk
hasn't
it.
been told correctly. And
It's prisoners of war. So you're saying insane, but it's actually prisoners of war.
Prisoners of war, yes.
And for, sorry to cut you, I don't mean to.
No.
And I heard someone say that the Windrush came on a warship.
Yeah.
Windrush was a war.
It was a ship used to,
That before
it
people
was used to carry people from Norway, Europeans from Norway to Auschwitz. And you know what happened in Auschwitz. So that ship is got quite a
history probably behind it.
It's a German ship, German built. It's only yesterday I found out. I saw a book. I found a book. You know?
This is what I'm saying, it's so important that this comes in at primary age.
Yes.
Secondary children, you need to build them up from primary. So that when they go into secondary, they know who they are.
absolutely.
And they